Kari's point of view during the events of Digimon Adventure is both interesting and kind of funny to me. Hello, my name is Ben and welcome to another video on the channel. Today I wanted to talk about a few things regarding Digimon Adventure. The show is pinnacle nostalgia for me. I love the show and I've been watching and rewatching this series for over 2 decades now. Let's direct our focus on Kari and actually get started with this video. During my most recent rewatch of Digimon Adventure, I started thinking about Kari's point of view. She was introduced in episode 21 of the anime when Tai was transported back to the human world. We learn in this episode that Tai is back on the same day he and the others were sent to the digital world in the first place, back in episode 1. The flow of time is very different in the digital world compared to the human world. We don't know exactly how long the kids were in the digital world originally. It gets mentioned a few times that we've seen the kids in the digital world for at least a few months before episode 28. So that's where all the other characters are, right? They spend months in the digital world and they come back home. Kari's point of view is very different. Because she's sick, she's not going to the summer camp that Tai goes to, so she sees him leave to go to the summer camp. Her parents then leave to visit her grandma. Tai then shows up potentially less than an hour after he first left for camp. He and Agumon then leave Kari to go back to the digital world, and later that same day, Tai and the others return again to the real world, this time at the summer camp. For all we know, when Tai and the others return to the human world, Kari hasn't even finished walking back home after seeing her brother and Agumon transport back into the digital world back in episode 21. Like I mentioned earlier, this is something I thought about on a recent rewatch, and it's pretty fascinating to me. Her perspective is so different compared to the other characters. It also puts a new perspective on how much time she and Gatomon actually had together as digidestined and Digimon partner. While the other kids got to spend months being with their Digimon and experiencing the crazy adventures that they went on in the digital world, Kari and Gatomon probably only knew each other for, let's say, a month, maybe 2 months if you want to be generous, before we reach the end of Adventure 1 and Kari and Gatomon have to say goodbye to each other. Now let's talk about something else focusing on Kari. So it's a safe assumption that the writers and animators knew that Kari was going to be introduced as the 8th member of the Digidestined later in the story. But what if I told you that in earlier episodes, the animators left some potential clues or hints to suggest that there's meant to be an 8th kid with the other characters? This portion of the video is fully speculation on my end, and this is stuff that I have thought about since I was a child. I am simply presenting my now 2-decade-old theories / ideas that I've had about Digimon Adventure since I've watched the show as a kid. I think you'll understand where I'm going as we actually break down some of the clues / secrets left by the animators for the viewers to speculate and theorize that someone's missing from this group. Some of these might be obvious and others are definitely me overthinking, but again, let's just have some fun with it. Let's pretend for a moment that Digimon Adventure came out today during a time where any and every series gets analysed and looked at by people across the internet. Okay, so the first shot here is from episode 1. Like I said earlier, this is something I've speculated since I was a kid. Does anyone else think it's odd that we can see a small gap in between Joe and the rest of the kids in this shot? It always felt off to me. It looks like you could easily pop in an 8th kid in that little gap. There's a similar shot like this in episode 4, when the kids are walking through the desert. There's a noticeable gap in between all the other characters and Izzy and Tentomon. Why is that gap there? Why did they animate it like that? These 2 shots where we see one character being separated by the rest of the group by just this weird random gap, I couldn't help but think that maybe this was meant to be some kind of early sign to the viewers that there's meant to be an 8th character here. An 8th child and an 8th Digimon is supposed to be here. Now let's look at episode 6. When Monzamon uses his hearts attack, I couldn't help but notice 8 hearts. Look, I know that the idea is that he sends out more than 8 hearts when attacking the Digidestined, or even at the end of the episode when he's sending out the hearts to give a big hug to all the characters. But during these shots when he does his hearts attack, it's interesting that 8 hearts were animated for this shot. Just putting that out there. This is a more obvious scene and probably the most common / talked about one. In episode 8 we have this scene where the kids are staying in the mansion and we see 8 beds in the room. Now I get it. It makes more sense to see 4 beds on one side and 4 beds on the other. However, remember Devimon used these powers to create this mansion. All of it was fake. All of it was done by Devimon. So why did Devimon create an 8th bed when he seemingly already knows that there's only 7 kids? Now we have another one similar to the Hearts Attack shot I was talking about with Monzamon. Am I reaching? Abso-fucking-lutely. But I'm also having fun, so let's get on with it. Episode 13, Devimon turns Ogremon into multiple black gears. And oh, how many gears does he consist of in this shot? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ogremon was turned into 8 black gears. Interesting number choice. With that said, I do need to point out that there could be a potential error here, either during this scene or the next scene. There is a 9th gear that you can see slightly off screen. To make up for that potential error involving black gears, how about we check out this shot with black gears flying towards the island. Once again, I count 8 black gears here. Oh, and look at this, another shot in the same episode where we see another group of black gears flying towards the island, and once again, we see 8 black gears. If we put these shots together, that makes a total of 16 black gears we've just seen flying towards the island. 16. 8 times 2 is 16. 8 digidestined, 8 Digimon partners. So once again, this is all speculation on my end, and I'm willing to admit that most of these are a reach on my part. Realistically speaking, aside from maybe the beds, this wasn't done on purpose to foreshadow an 8th Digidestined. But I think it's still fun to talk about it, right? Like I said earlier, this is the kind of stuff that I'm used to seeing other people do with new shows and new anime and new films and television and video games. It's all about analysing, over-analysing, and reanalyzing the same content again and again and again to see if you can find anything else that possibly no one else has talked about or discovered or at least even considered before. Moving on from the biggest stretch I've made in a video so far though, there's one more thing I want to talk about regarding Kari. I don't want to spend too much time on this subject because I think it deserves its own video by either me or someone who has more experience, but I still want to point it out in this video the amount of fun you can have with the what if scenario when focusing on Kari and Gatomon. Obviously you've got the simple what if, that being what if Kari and Gatomon were there at the beginning of Digimon Adventure's plot, but that's not the only way you can take it. What if Gatomon didn't get separated from the other Digimon? What if she never found Myotismon? What if Kari was still sick, didn't go to summer camp, but she still received a Digivice when the other kids did and still ended up getting transported to the digital world? What if Gatomon's story stayed the same, but Kari was at the summer camp and still received a Digivice and ended up in the digital world with the other kids? Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this subject because I think this deserves its own video by either me or someone who has better experience in what if type videos. I just wanted to point out some really fun ones you could have with Kari and Gatomon. Kari is one of my favourite characters in Digimon Adventure, and I think she has one of the most interesting introductions to the Digimon series. I'm glad I've made a video dedicated to her and talking about some theories / ideas I've had regarding her and I guess Gatomon as well over the years watching this series, again for 2 decades now. Ooh, I'm getting old. Once again, it's just crazy to think about Kari's point of view during the events of Digimon Adventure. She saw her brother leave, come back, leave, come back, all in the span of 1 day. But for Tai and the other kids, they went through months traveling through the digital world before they ended up back home. And with all that said, I'm going to wrap up the video here. I hope you enjoyed. I had a lot of fun making this video, and I'm hoping to make more Digimon focused videos in the future. Definitely going to have to be careful though. Digimon videos are the reason why I lost my previous channel, so gotta play it safe. That's why most of this video has just been pictures and silly edits. Anyway, for one last time, thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.